Hello, and welcome to the City Assisted Evacuation Volunteer Training for the 2022 hurricane season. My name is Maddie, and I'm on the NOLA Ready team, so I regularly work with the NOLA Ready Volunteer Corps. Here's our agenda and what we'll be covering tonight. First, we're going to go over tropical weather and hurricane response. Then we'll dive into the City Assisted Evacuation, including the staffing and volunteer roles associated with CAE. We'll take a deeper dive into the registration process, and at the end, we'll go over some frequently asked questions. As you all probably know, hurricane season lasts from June 1st to November 30th, with the greatest risk in August and September. Here in New Orleans, we all know it only takes one storm, so we have to plan as though we'll be impacted every year. This year, we can expect another active Atlantic hurricane season, with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration predicting 14 to 21 named storms, of which 6 to 10 could become hurricanes and 3 to 6 could become major hurricanes. What's important to remember for this hurricane season is that before you can help others evacuate, it's important that you and your loved ones are personally prepared. For more tips on hurricane preparedness, you can visit ready.nola.gov. The City of New Orleans tropical weather response relies upon the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. You'll see on this slide that hurricanes are listed in categories 1 through 5 based on the strength of the winds associated with them. Categories 3, 4, and 5 are considered major hurricanes, and as a general rule, that's when the city will consider issuing a mandatory evacuation if there's enough time ahead of a storm. If an evacuation is not ordered, it's up to each individual or household to decide whether or not to evacuate. If the city issues a mandatory evacuation, all residents and visitors must leave. Hurricane plans connect residents to essential services and keep them out of harm's way. Depending on the circumstance of each incident, emergency plans like pre-storm and post-storm evacuation, emergency resource centers, and/or shelters will be put into place. Residents will not be turned away from any emergency operation, regardless of their immigration status, identification, primary language, or functional needs, and services are free for all. If you are already a NOLA Ready volunteer, this will be a review of CAE. If you are a new volunteer, please pay careful attention to this quick and simple overview of what city-assisted evacuation is and how NOLA Ready volunteers support operations. The city-assisted evacuation plan provides a last resort option for individuals to evacuate and return safely in the event of a mandatory evacuation order. We anticipate that some folks will not be able to self-evacuate due to a lack of transportation, medical or mobility need, or a financial constraint. We estimate that 90% of New Orleanians are going to be able to evacuate on their own, but that leaves about 10% of our city unable to self-evacuate. We estimate this to be roughly 35,000 to 40,000 people who will use the city-assisted evacuation. As members of the NOLA Ready Volunteer Corps, our mission is to help get folks to safety. Our objective is to support the evacuation of families, those with specific medical needs, and pets in a 24-hour time frame. This is a large-scale and life-saving operation, which involves over 20 agencies, so it's really all hands on deck, and our volunteers are critical in expanding the city capacity to accomplish this mission. It's important to note that rapidly intensifying storms are frequently becoming the norm, and that makes post-landfall evacuation more likely. We do have several scenarios for a CAE rapid intensification contingency. These include green, amber, and red scenarios, which are differentiated by how much time we have ahead of landfall. For tonight, we're just going to focus on the green scenario, which is a full-scale, standard city-assisted evacuation. But you should know that there is the option to activate an amber scenario or limited CAE with prioritized evacuation, and or a red scenario, with little to no pre-storm evacuation, but a larger post-storm operation. So this is our timeline for a full-scale mandatory evacuation, which relies on about 72 hours from when tropical storm force winds hit the Louisiana coast. Remember, the city of New Orleans cannot call a mandatory evacuation on their own, for it requires the coordination and execution of more than 20 local, state, and federal partners, including the Department of Children and Family Services, the state of Mississippi, Louisiana DOTD, Louisiana State Police, and more. However, if a mandatory evacuation is called, this is our likely timeline. Around age 72, we will be reaching out to NOLA Ready volunteers to inform you that your support is essential and appreciated in city-assisted evacuation. Around this time, we'll also host a just-in-time training for new volunteers and send out information of on-demand resources. Beginning at age 54, we will have 3 8-hour-long volunteer shifts. You'll be dismissed at the end of your final shift. At age 30, all volunteers will be released and able to self-evacuate ahead of the storm. At age 12, air travel will be grounded, and finally, at age 0, tropical storm force winds will hit the Louisiana coast. Here's how New Orleans residents can use city-assisted evacuation. First, residents will travel to the Smoothie King Center by bus, rideshare, taxi, getting dropped off by a friend or family member, or walking or biking up. Outside the Smoothie King Center, residents will receive an evacuation ticket. From there, residents will enter the Smoothie King Center and be triaged for transport to a regional shelter that will meet their individual needs and the specific needs of their family group or pets. All CAE users may bring one carry-on size bag. In addition, they can also bring pet supplies, diaper bags, and other essential medical equipment. CAE users will receive bottled water and food or snacks on their outgoing buses, and they may also receive COVID-19 protective equipment, like an N95 mask. The only things that are not allowed for the CAE process are weapons or illegal substances. CAE users are sorted into 3 primary groups based on the types of shelter that might be a good fit for them. These include people with medical needs or access and functional needs, the general population, including individuals and families, and those who have pets. These types of users will all be sorted throughout the process. Here's an overview of the basic flow of CAE. As you can see, folks can walk up or get dropped off around Lot 3 outside the Smoothie King Center. From there, they'll be sent through registration, receive their tickets from the ticketing stations, and enter the Smoothie King Center through a main entrance. On the inside of the Smoothie King Center, as you can see here, folks will be triaged into 9 bus lanes. They may be sent out to the air or rail queue, and they may be sent to a special medical area over on this bottom hallway. In general, the general population buses will be loading through the back loading dock and queuing outside. So how do volunteers get involved? Well, volunteers are one part of the staffing for CAE. Other staffing includes the New Orleans Fire Department, the New Orleans Police Department, the New Orleans Health Department, the New Orleans Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, and of course, NOLA Ready. Here's where volunteers come in. Evacuation volunteers will serve 1 to 2 shifts and then evacuate ahead of the storm with everyone else. Again, we do not ask volunteers to stay through the storm. We'll have 8-hour volunteer shifts, like I mentioned before, and food and water will be provided. There will also be a cooling station as needed. Volunteers will be stationed both inside and outside of the Smoothie King Center. Here are some of the ways in which volunteers support the CAE. Reading and navigation volunteers will answer questions and help direct people through the CAE process. Volunteers will also help with registration, issuing evacuation tickets and bans. We'll have a team of registration volunteers specifically helping out with pets, including handling. There will also be a team of folks helping with accessibility, including pushing wheelchairs, carrying luggage, and driving golf carts to help transport people with mobility needs. We'll have a team of volunteers who are comfortable carrying and lifting heavy items to help with luggage loading, and finally, runners and floaters who will generally support in more flexible roles. Volunteers will receive just-in-time briefings and report to staff on site. However, it is worth familiarizing ourselves with the most involved volunteer role for CAE, which is registration. Evacuation registration is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Our first priority is to keep families together. Our second is to ensure that all folks have wristbands and each luggage is tagged. Finally, we want to fill and complete each registration ticket. So let's break it down. There are 4 sheets in the registration evacuation ticket. 3 of them are carbon copies of the original registration ticket. Folks who are utilizing the CAE must keep all of their tickets together until public safety personnel separate them just prior to boarding their designated bus, plane, or train. Everyone traveling together will be on the same evacuation ticket, and every person who's evacuating also needs to receive a wristband, and each of their personal items needs to have a luggage tag. So be sure to place and issue a tag for other essential belongings, including wheelchairs, oxygen tanks, and pet carriers. Like I said before, every family group needs to be on one evacuation ticket. Evacuation tickets are provided to us by the State of Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services, or DCFS. It's really important for families to be on the same evacuation ticket because DCFS is going to be taking this information and putting it into their electronic record in the system. In the event that families are separated, luggage is lost, or pets are separated, there's a record of who needs to be together in their assigned shelter so everyone can be reunited. We'll spend a couple minutes discussing how to fill out and complete the evacuation ticket. First, always write Orleans in the parish section. Second, on the top right, you'll fill in the parish pickup point, or PPP section, with SKC for the Smoothie King Center. Third, you're going to put the address of the family or the individual. If they all live in separate places, you'll write the main address the family wants to associate their group with, as well as the zip code. If they don't want to give an address, that's totally fine. You can put the address of City Hall, which is listed here and will remind you of day of. Fourth, you want to ensure that everyone in a group is listed on the ticket. We recognize that family groups are anyone who presents as a family unit, and they don't need to be biologically related. If you run out of space, simply staple another evacuation ticket to the back of the first to make sure that everyone remains together. In section 5, we'll denote date of birth. Section 6 is used to help continue or to ensure continuing education. Section 7 refers to information about gender. If someone doesn't identify with M or F, you can leave the section blank. Fill in sections 8 and 9 with unique ID numbers from the wristbands and property bands that you're issuing out. Finally, section 10 through 12 is designated for pet registration, and if you're not on the pet registration team, you should leave this section blank. Now let's talk a little bit about pet registration. All pets, large and small, are welcome. Pet registration and evacuation at the Smoothie King Center is managed by the New Orleans Fire Department in partnership with the LASPCA. Volunteers can support the pet registration process and may be called to do so. All pets will be given a pet band to make sure that families and individuals with pets stay together. As mentioned, individuals and families evacuating with pets will be placed in a shelter that is co-located with a pet shelter. And we recommend that CAE users with pets make a plan to care for their pets while they're evacuated. Staff and volunteers will also work alongside the New Orleans Health Department, the Louisiana Department of Health, and our health partners to support CAE users who have medical or mobility needs. The Medical Reserve Corps and the EMS Vigor program comprise are comprised of volunteers who have a professional license in the medical profession, the nursing profession, behavioral health, or veterinary profession, and they may provide care to CAE users using their licenses. NOLA-ready volunteers may support in more general ways, such as assisting an individual through the CAE, carrying their luggage, providing physical assistance to them while they get on buses, or driving golf carts to ensure that people can get from point A to point B. All right, now let's go over a few common FAQs. First of all, one of your primary roles as a volunteer is to be a friendly face to evacuees. This is a stressful situation for everyone, and it's important to look out for people who are confused, agitated, lost, or struggling to keep their family together. If you identify anyone in need of a helping hand, ask how you can be of assistance, answer their questions, and bring them to a supervisor if needed. One common question is going to be, where are we headed? Volunteers and staff might not be able to answer this question right away. While we're at the Smoothie King Center, we probably won't have concrete information on evacuees' final shelter destination. CAE users will most likely learn the location of their DCFS assigned shelter once they're on board their outgoing bus. As we mentioned before, DCFS will have identified many shelters across the state and in other states as well. The shelters closest to us are going to fill up first, and then those farther and farther away. So we don't have a concrete say on shelter placement because there's such a large number of people evacuating, and really the answer is you'll be headed to the nearest open shelter. Another common question is, when can we come home? Well, this is what you need to know. The CAE process works in reverse upon a city-approved and safe reentry into New Orleans. Reentry operations are run through the Union Passenger Terminal. There is a three-tiered reentry process associated with a mandatory evacuation. Staff and volunteers have the option, if asked, to return safely early before the general population to assist with reentry. Otherwise, our evacuees will return with the general population. Finally, you as a CAE volunteer can opt into text messages on your Better Impact profile and regularly check your email to stay in the know. You can also check the Better Impact opportunity page if you're interested in other volunteer opportunities and review NOLA-ready trainings on demand through Better Impact. If you have any questions, you can follow up at volunteer@nola.gov or by checking out our website. Thank you again for joining us for the CAE volunteer training and learning how you can support emergency operations during hurricane season.